Thank you, Chair. Mr. Boissonnault, you granted a personal loan and you wouldn't answer Mr. Barrett's questions about who it was to. I do understand the sensitivities around this, but the committee does have a hard time believing you and obviously has many questions about your business dealings. So I want to ask, would you be willing to provide that name in writing to the committee with the understanding that it would not be made public unless the committee saw it as being in the public interest to be made public? Would you be willing to provide the name on that basis?
Mr. Indigenous, I will share this with the committee. It is to a loan for a friend for a property, and it's not appropriate to share that person's name with the committee or with Canadians.
Okay, my request was that it would be provided on a private basis to the committee for the committee to consider, and it sounds like you're not willing to do that. So we'll move on to the next question. You continued to own GHI after you were elected. When did you step back from GHI operations?
Once I was elected in September of 2021, I sent an email to my lawyer who contacted Mr. Anderson's lawyer to let them know that I was stepping away from the company.
Okay. GHI claimed to be a wholly Indigenous-owned company in a bid made in June 2020. So you had not stepped aside at that point. You were involved in the operation of the company when it claimed to be fully Indigenous-owned. Were you aware of the bid made for masks from the federal government in June of 2020?
No, Mr. Anderson was uniquely and totally responsible for federal contracts. It would have been inappropriate for me to work on any federal contracts. I confirmed that with the Ethics Commissioner, and it was the same approach that I used.
Mr. Boissonnault, we're talking about a time. Let's underline the date, June of 2020. We're talking about a time when you were not elected. You have said, and this is obviously disputed, but you have said you stepped back from any involvement in the company after you were elected. But we're talking about a time when you were not elected, and therefore when the company was still claiming to be wholly Indigenous owned. So in June of 2020, were you aware of bids, a bid for masks, to provide masks to the federal government?
Mr. Indigenous, I've been very clear that I worked with the Ethics Commissioner, and I was very clear with Mr. Anderson that any federal contracts were entirely his responsibility.
And you're saying that that included the time when you were not elected?
Absolutely. There was a wall in our company so that I would not have anything to do with federal contracts. It would be inappropriate. I was still governed by lobbying provisions. I took my
And at no point in that bid did he ever even ask you if you were Indigenous? Just answer the question. Did he at any point ask you if you were Indigenous? How did he come to the conclusion that you were Indigenous?
He did not, and none of our company was certified Indigenous, so he should not have done this at all. And I'm glad that the provisions, the safeguards, prevented the company from getting.
So I guess we're to believe that Mr. Anderson sat down with the Liberal Party of Canada and they both decided to falsely claim you were Indigenous without ever consulting you. Mr. Boissonnault, you've said that your CREE name means strong eagle man. Now, I've consulted with Indigenous leaders on this. I understand that being gifted a traditional name has a very specific cultural and ceremonial context. I wonder if you could share with the committee what that name is, when you were given it, who gave it to you, and what was the ceremony involved?
Absolutely, that is a gift of the name and an eagle feather by Elder Ed LaValle of the Edmonton Two Spirit Society, and that was done in a medicine blanket ceremony the Friday before the election in 2021, and it was the Elder Ed LaValle presided at that ceremony. My mom attended that ceremony, and I really respect that gift. And the Cree name is Maskau Kihiyu, and it translates into Strong Eagle Man. And the reason that the Two Spirits Society conferred this great honor on me is because they said I gave voice to the voiceless, and that the reason they chose Strong Eagle Man was because I would be flying back and forth to Ottawa after the election, and it was my responsibility to take care of it.
Okay, well, we'll be able to verify that, and I do thank you for providing that context. Finally, you said that you participated in the Liberal Indigenous Caucus as an ally. Were there ever any other non-Indigenous people who were counted as members of the Liberal Indigenous Caucus? Because all of the public representations of the Liberal Indigenous Caucus exclusively show members of Parliament who are or have claimed to be Indigenous. So why is it that there were no other people invited into the caucus on the same basis that you were?
I'm not sure that other allies made the same representation that I did, but when we met as a caucus between 2015 and 2019...
But can you just confirm then that that's a no, that you were the only one?
No, Mr. Genuous, we frequently opened the meeting up to other allies.
No, but you were a member, right?
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order. Okay, time has expired. Time has just expired. Do you still have a point of order?
Well, yeah, with all due respect to Mr. Genuous, if he wants to join our Liberal caucus, he can join, and we'll explain to him how we work inside our caucus, but our caucus is none of his business.
All right, thank you, Mr. Drew. That's not a point of
But
order.
just on the point of order, there are public posts about this Liberal Indigenous Caucus which show its members. So it's
Point of
convenient for
order.
it now to be a
Debate.
private caucus
Debate.
caucus matter.
Debate.
Time is up. Mr. Batiste.